Good evening. Welcome to Three Beards and a Boss. I am just one little dude. No, I'm just kidding. I'm TJ. We got Becky in the middle. We got Bobby to the far right. We got Brian on the right below me. And of course, we have Danielle.
Yay!
Danielle is doing a repeat, y'all. I had to go and buy a brand new computer because we did her show, and my computer was so slow. If you go overseas and you try to watch a movie and it's buffing, that's what it looked like when we were doing the show with Danielle, and we just couldn't live with that. So we said we'd do a complete redo. So that's why we're here. That's what we're doing, and let's get into some stuff here. Becky loves crime stuff, so she's found us a few things to talk about. And unfortunately, they're out of my state of Virginia. So go ahead, Beck.
Well, a couple. I got like three big stories, but I'll start with yours. So there is the 28-year-old. He was a state trooper in Virginia. He lives in Chesterfield County. He went and he was talking online to a 14, 15-year-old girl and basically catfished her into thinking he was a teen himself, went out to Riverside, California, and killed her parents, and then kidnapped her, and ultimately died in a shootout with the police out there. But the girl was fine. She's unharmed and hopefully back with family.
It blows my mind because you said Chesterfield County. That's where I live.
Yes.
I didn't know this guy. He was started out as a state trooper. He did some time with the state police. He went over to a different county, in one of those small counties here in the state. But it blows your mind because we have so many police officers, so many deputy sheriffs, so many troopers, you name it, what type of law enforcement it is, and you have bad apples.
Yeah.
It does not make it any easier hearing those type of stories, and it really screws with our life. Well, it screws with our people trusting us, and it breaks your heart because you're like, why? Mm-hmm. Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself? Why would you talk to a child?
Right.
Knowing, and, of course, you said he was a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been on the road long enough to have seen those type of stories or those type of situations. Doesn't give an excuse because as a human being, you should know right from wrong.
And I believe he was an officer in any capacity for less than a year.
Right.
I don't think he even made it a whole year without resigning and trying to get to another agency. But yeah.
It's pretty amazing to catfish. I remember when I was visiting Ohio, Bobby and I were watching the Te'ao, like Junior Te'ao story.
Oh,
it blew my mind, man. Like how people can get that catfished.
And become so emotionally involved with people that they don't know. And It's not proven who they are. I mean, I guess I get it to get an emotional connection, but you better prove who you are to me. I don't know.
It's almost a good thing that the Stephens have low emotional thresholds.
Right.
They get too involved with people, so those catfish attempts don't work on us.
You ain't getting us on no catfish.
Yeah, ain't no catfishing us. We're going to need some verification, some FaceTime, free documents of ID, DNA sample. We ain't playing that.
I need a newspaper with today's date.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But you know what? It's so funny because I think everybody's catfished anymore. Literally every single person.
Filters.
Have you? Yeah. I mean, you cannot. There's no picture on the internet that is just real, non-filtered, and not dolled up in some way.
Well, actually, me and Danielle were talking about this earlier.
Wait, Danielle's muted. I'm unmuting you.
Danielle's got a lot to say about this.
Danielle's got a great story. Get her on here.
But she has to unmute herself.
There we go.
I did.
There we go. Okay.
Not everyone uses filters, and maybe that would be beneficial if I did, but I can say I'm not trying to go on a tangent. We were talking before the show about dating apps and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I try to be as open as I can be. Like, I don't wear makeup. Y'all are seeing me. I just don't have my desk lamp on, but I don't wear makeup. I don't do filters. I'm a big girl. I put a whole body picture, in my work clothes or whatever, something nice on dating apps and stuff like that. And y'all, this is kind of sad, and kind of sad to say this. I recently did 2 apps out of 2 apps and probably 500 profiles. I had 0 matches. And it is what it is with that, but not everybody uses filters, but I almost think like maybe I need to. I don't know. But
I think it's
no,
just such a
you know what?
norm.
This is what people always tell me, like, just with dating and stuff. They're like, you want somebody that is going to meet you where you are. Like, I don't want somebody thinking I'm like 120 pounds and wear makeup every day, because that's not what they're getting. And the more you do that, like, the harder it is for you, because that's not you. You know what?
Yeah.
So if you like me. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
Move on.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I
But
tell-
you're going to get me as I am. That's all.
I tell Seth all the time, I'm like, that girl might be attracted to you right now.
Right.
But when she wakes up in the morning, all that's going to be on a pillowcase. And you're going to be stuck with what you were with. And it's not going to look like that at all. So you can be duped into whatever, man. But when you wake up in the morning, you want to know what you kind of went home with.
And her hair extensions are on the nightstand. You're like, what?
Oh,
in the world?
Hair extension, eyelash extension,
Yes.
makeup. Like, you do too much. Women do too much.
What about the butt implants people are doing that are now going opposite the way? Now people are like getting these big old booty injections, and now they're like, oh, wait a second, maybe we want to go back to small booties.
Yeah.
And so like it's like, come on, man, you're doing drastic things to your bodies.
Right.
it's a trend.
It's a
And
trend.
I mean,
It's a trend.
and and it's sad, like even with social media, 2 weeks down the road, we may be talking about this and this trend today. 2 weeks later, it's going to be something completely different that they're going to jump on the bandwagon for. And I'm just like, people are just inherently not true to themselves nowadays.
Right.
Yep.
And that's
And
the
that's-
thing right there. You said it. They're not true to themselves. They're
Right.
lying to themselves on a freaking daily basis.
because you're trying. I mean, we're all given a standard, and we're always trying to live to that standard. But if that's not you, that's not you. Like, quit.
Exactly. And I think of it not in, it's kind of funny if you think about it, kind of not, but say for instance, somebody went missing and all the pictures that you have are doctored up and not your intended self.
Yeah.
They're going to be looking for the wrong person.
Yeah.
Ain't her.
Yeah. Look how beautiful she is. No, she actually looks like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
A straight up hot mess express,
Yeah.
I always doctor this photo. I don't have 3 humps. I mean, true. So true. So true.
Okay,
But I
Becky,
was
what's this next story?
Okay, so I guess I'll go to the next one, which is more relevant to me. But what we talked about last week is Shanquella Robinson.
Okay. You got an
That
update?
story about, is everybody familiar?
Yes.
The woman
Mhm.
that went to Cabo with 6 of her friends and was murdered. So Mexico has agreed to extradite
Mhm.
the girl who assaulted her, and I don't know, there's probably going to be more, but the U.S. is not going to stand in their way. So hopefully that happens very, very soon. So and then the last one is Casey Anthony and her new Peacock
Oh,
tell-all.
yes.
What?
I have mixed feelings about this because
Oh.
I want to know what she says, but at the same time I don't want to give her a platform.
But Becky, do you really think it's going to be a platform? You know what? It is going to be a platform, because a platform could be whatever you want to make it.
Yep.
So are we really going to get the truth out of her? Or
Well,
are we just going to
everybody-
get what she wants us to believe?
Well, everybody knows, like, even without watching the documentary, what she says. She says that her father was molesting her as a young girl, and then she thinks that he was molesting Kaylee. And one day, he just walks in with Kaylee's limp, dead body and said that she drowned in a pool. And then she spent all this time trying to cover up for her dad, who did it. So
I can't buy
I'm not
that.
buying it.
I
How
don't
long
buy
has
it
she
at all.
had to fathom that story?
Huh?
Mm.
Yeah, no.
How long has she had
Yeah,
to
I
fathom
mean-
that story.
Yeah.
That's what
20
she
years.
is that this whole time she's been covering for her dad. He scared her to the point where she kept lying about everything. That's why she was caught in all the lies. But ultimately, like, her dad had molested her for years. Also, her brother. And
Did her dad just die by any chance or anything? Or
huh?
Yeah.
her dad's still alive?
Well, there's no
Oh, yeah.
statute of limitations
Yeah.
when it comes to murder.
He's alive.
Oh,
He's
damn.
alive.
See, I could see her like doing this. Like, oh, this guy's dead. He doesn't have any chance
Yeah,
to defend
now-
himself. Let me throw this dude
exactly.
under the bus.
He's alive.
Now, help me remember. Okay, this is the girl from Florida, right?
Yes.
Orlando, right?
Florida.
Yeah.
Kaylee Anthony was the little girl who was 2 years old. Went missing for 31 days before her grandmother reported it.
Okay.
Her grandmother calls 911, basically says, "Hey, my granddaughter's been missing for 31 days. It smells like there's been a dead body in my daughter's car."
Oh, Lord.
Blah, blah, blah. And then Casey, the mom, proceeds to literally take the officers and the police and the detectives on this case on a wild goose chase. Like, she says that her nanny has had her. She takes her to the nanny's house, to the nanny's mom's house, to all these places. The nanny never lived there. Unfortunately, this was a real woman who felt the consequences of this. And she's like, I was never involved. Said she worked at Universal Studios. She took the officers to Universal, ends up saying, "Hey, I never worked here." So she just had all these lies. Unfortunately, of her daughter's murder.
How was she acquitted? I guess I'm still. How was she acquitted? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Of all charges.
All charges. She was convicted of falsifying a police or lying to the police, essentially, by telling them all these falsehoods, because they could prove that she was lying to you know all these other.
They could have gotten her on.
She was convicted of.
Yeah, they could have got her on. Not reporting body, not reporting proper. I can't remember what the code section is, but basically, hey, someone died and I didn't cause this death, but I had.
Well, she didn't even
for the law. I
her
have to
daughter was
report it.
dead until she was found.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the whole thing. I mean, and yeah. So now she has this. It all happened back in the early 2010s, 2011, and now she's speaking out and telling her story and her truth and blaming it literally all on her dad.
And she's going to probably get paid for it.
I'm sure she is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So there's a third story you have, right?
No, I did
it.
that. Shanquella and then Kaylee. Yeah.
Okay. So there was one other, and then we're going to get into talking to Danielle.
Yes.
Last week, there was a mass shooting in Chesapeake, Virginia. Basically, it was the supervisor or the manager or something, and I don't know all the details yet. It's still pending. But he shot some people, and then he shot himself.
He killed 6
and
people.
I want to say it was on Thanksgiving, I want to say it was on Thanksgiving or day before.
Day before.
So of course that happened, and that's an hour and a half from here, and then a couple of days, I think it was before, right after, we actually had a murder here. I can't get too much into it because it's a local case, but I will tell you that he did kill the family, or allegedly kill the family. And they caught him in Maryland, and that's about all I can tell you, because it's a local case. But our world's going to hell in a handbasket, like we talked about a couple days ago, or last show, right? Or show before that, hell in a handbasket.
That was last show.
Yeah.
The thing is like you can't go one day without seeing a tragedy.
Yeah.
And not even just not that all tragedies aren't tragedies, but like we're not even talking like somebody takes their own life. We're talking tragedy on a whole nother level.
Right.
I mean, it's
so we talked about we're doing a do-over for Danielle, and I know Brian's got lots of questions, but I'm going to start us out. So Danielle is my friend from TikTok, and we've done some videos together. Matter of fact, I snatched some of her videos today and made my own little spin on it today. And she is a emergency medical specialist, right? Or emergency management specialist. So tell me what does it entail?
Well, I do have a few different things. My role supporting the state of Louisiana's emergency medical support functions. Essentially, what I do, I'm assigned to a geographic region, which includes 7 parishes, which is equivalent to you all's counties. And I help oversee the emergency management program. Now, what that does is we help make the emergency response plans, the recovery plans, and help mitigate things, hazards that we define when we do our yearly hazardous mitigation survey. And we try to lessen the threats when they actually happen. Now, for instance, last year we had a very active hurricane season with hurricanes. I believe it was Ian and, oh my heavens, there was another one and I forget the name, forgive me, but we had 2 that directly impact South Louisiana, with Hurricane Ian being the most significant. And at that time, the region just decided to had to evacuate 400 patients from 2 hospitals. I assisted my counterpart in that region with the influx of those patients into my region and finding them applicable bed types and services based upon for what they were admitted into their hospitals for. So I do a lot of that. And anybody who's worked with disasters, we refer to blue skies and gray skies. So gray skies are when we actually are working in a disaster environment or have an imminent threat of some type of disaster, whether it be natural or man-made. Our blue skies are when we have that downtime that we're reviewing emergency plans and seeing what we can do to enhance our capabilities to lessen the impact of a disaster when they happen. And so, some people have the mind that, disaster managers are only busy when, the proverbial S hits the fan, but that's not the case. I am so busy day in and day out. Like I was at a hospital today. We were doing a site survey, identifying safe rooms in their hospital for their employees and patients for an active shooter event. And so I do that where I go to different locations in all of these hospitals. It's about 60 different facilities that I work with and help them build out these plans. And I do that supporting the state of Louisiana and in conjunction with Ochsner Health System as well, which is the largest health system in Louisiana.
Now, Brian, you working in emergency management or emergency medicine, I'm sorry. Do you get with folks like this and make plans and those type of things?
All the time. I'm glad that you said that, Danielle, about the blue sky, gray sky thing, because people don't realize how much time goes into like kind of what Danielle said. You talk about the highest risk, and I'm sure Louisiana is, of course, a hurricane, and of course in California it's an earthquake. And you talk about, okay, this is the most imminent thing that can happen to my facility to shut it down. But then you have 10 other things below that don't just include natural disasters, but electrical outages, internet outages. And so we're constantly working on like, okay, what happens when this isn't running smoothly? And people don't realize that how much work goes into that, because whenever there is a disaster and there's not a huge loss of life, of course there's going to be loss of property, but there's not a huge loss of life, and you're not missing a beat on your operations. That's because people like Danielle are working behind the scenes tirelessly to make sure that when the S does hit the fan, that you don't even notice it, because there's been so much planning and talk about it and drills and this, that, and the other behind it. So yeah, very much so. We work in conjunction with, with people in our county as well about, these things. We're right next to my last hospital is right next to an airport. So on our list of things was a airplane flying into our hospital, and one of them did. A single engine plane wrecked into our hospital administration building. So it really did happen one time. So I mean, like, even if you don't think like that risk was probably at a 1% risk, but it happened. It's like a 1 in every 100 situations, but they happen.
Speaking to that, which I find absolutely fascinating, in to my experiences, most governments will buy the cheapest plot of land to put their offices because of, they want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And I get that. Well, in Baton Rouge, the city and parish emergency operations center is at the end of the airport. And so if they had a plane land, it would take out the emergency operations center where you're going to assemble to mitigate the emergency, which I don't know whose idea that was, but And it just reminded me that when Brian mentioned about the hospital being right next to the airport.
Yeah, we've actually had this airport. Sorry, this is a little off subject, but this airport is a county airport. You know, it's got all bunch of local traffic coming in and out of it. No flight tower. It's all manned by them talking to each other.
Right.
And unfortunately, just a couple months ago, we had another casualty at that airport where two planes collided midair trying to land.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So that airport is really like it could be a lot of dangers over there in that airport. It's just a little county airport, but
Yeah.
You know, with me learning how to fly, I fly out of a regional airport here in the county, and we do not have an ATC. The closest one is the city of Richmond. So when I take off here in the county, you're looking at your radar in the aircraft, and you're if you see a little speck on the radar, you got to look around and you start talking. So you'll have, like, I remember going in on a landing, and I'm in a small little plane, and I have a private jet. It's like a G500 waiting on the tarmac for me to land my little go-kart basically onto the runway to get out of his way.
Mhm.
And it's because, and we're just talking through the whole thing. So we don't have a control tower saying, hey, dummy, look for this. We're really just talking to each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And a lot of the flying is just basically talking. You're just checking in a lot, unless you're one of those big airlines.
I can answer the question on why they put that right next to the airport, Danielle. It's because when the shit is really hitting the fan, they can get out of there quickly. Like, hey, there's a plane right there.
Yeah.
We're out.
All
We're
the
out.
big ones are like, peace out.
It was actually the
Heads
smartest decision they made.
Head to the helipad. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, years ago when we had two wars going on, Chesterfield Airport was the airport that we were going to be flying in troops to take them to, like Walter Reed and like using MCV as one of our major hospitals, trauma centers for soldiers. It never came to pass, but that was in the plans, which is kind of crazy.
Well, Louis Armstrong Airport down in New Orleans, that airport in the wake of Katrina became a medical field triage station and a makeshift hospital, as well as a personnel and supply distribution point. They did turn that into, and that hadn't been put into plans. That was just done for lack of plans. And now they have that in planning now to be utilized for the same circumstance in the event that there's an impactful similar storm system.
Yeah. Well, Danielle,
do you think? Oh, sorry.
Oh no. From like COVID and things, did you start planning like mass vaccination centers? Like, where's our next mass vaccination center going to be? Did you guys start having to have conversations like that for, unfortunately, the next pandemic that we're going to have? Did you learn a lot of things from this one to get yourselves prepared for the next pandemic that we have?
We did. It was a learning curve. We learned a lot on how to communicate to the public from an anti-government perspective. Not that's probably a poor way to put it. Not anti-government, but having the information and education not coming from the government, but coming from the local providers. So we encouraged employees to be the eyes and ears of the education to their family members, to their community groups, to their churches, because people trust the locals that they know. They don't trust the government who's either going to push one agenda or the other, in one way direction. And so there was a lot of hesitancy about initially getting the vaccine because people in some cases refused to get educated on it, or the information was presented in such a way that people could not take that information, then go to their healthcare provider and have those conversations with their doctors to where they become comfortable enough to take the vaccine. So that was the first hurdle that we had with the vaccines. Then we had learning curve. Okay, so this virus is mutating. So we're having the different variants that we need to address. We already have a baseline vaccine, and the vaccine is not a new process. The virus itself is a novel virus, so that means it changes and mutates, but so is the flu, and everybody has been getting flu shots for many years. So you already had the study and science in this place to make the vaccine. All you had to do to the base the base part components of the vaccine was isolate the inactive part of the viral procedure that lets the virus replicate within the body, and add that to the vaccine to this. And that's so much science, y'all. I'm not going to inundate you with it, but that's part of the process. And when but people don't realize that science has been existing for years. It wasn't brand new with COVID. And so that was another hindrance with that. As we learned and started getting people that started to slowly, people that were willing to go ahead and get vaccinated because they saw the benefit outweighed the risk of doing so, and people started to get immunity, folks are starting to see like, hey, these people are not getting as sick when they are exposed and getting this. Now, the vaccine will not prevent you from getting an illness, just like a flu vaccine will not prevent you from getting an illness. But what it does, it typically makes your recovery time less than that if you were unvaccinated, and makes the symptoms less than that if you were unvaccinated. And that's, again, with any vaccine. And people started seeing that. So that was working to our platform of being vaccine advocates, and it was just a lengthy process of learning. So we did set up vaccination mass sites and also testing sites to where people we had it set up at several community centers where people could stay in their cars, and we had the personnel that had proper protective equipment on, and N95, which is the top tier for paper facial mask and things like that. Of course, you have contained respiratory protection equipment, but we utilized what we had, and people could drive up and get their test with the advent of the rapid test, and then cover the results in 15 minutes with the advice on, how to proceed and how to take care of themselves. And so it was an ongoing learning curve. And for all intents and purposes, even though that I can tell as in our state, because I oversee the monitoring of the COVID positivity rates for hospitalizations for my region. Today, we had 14 people in the hospital with COVID related conditions. And of course, those are your people who are either 100% of them either unvaccinated or have comorbidities, which have made their healing process be less efficient than those of a healthy individual. And so it has been a learning curve, but we did do mass vaccination clinics in conjunction with those drive-through testing sites. And there were days, y'all, that we would test 300, 400 people a day in our region. And we had to turn people away at the end of the day. We started at 7 a.m., went to 4:30 p.m., and we still had people lining up at 4:30 p.m. But it was like, y'all, we got to quit for the day and just come back tomorrow. So, but
let me ask you a quick question. I'm sorry. So it's actually for you and Brian. Because you're in two different states. Are your hospitals still wearing masks, your personnel?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even in clinics, we have to wear masks.
Okay.
It depends on the unit that you're in the hospital. In Louisiana, our particular hospital system, and well, actually, I can tell you all of my hospitals have gone mask optional.
Okay.
If you are unvaccinated, you still have to wear an N95 mask within the facilities. If you are vaccinated, it is optional. However, masking is required on our critical care units where you have your more sick patients and in patients' rooms that do have a COVID related admission.
Yeah, because the VA for their personnel, they all have to wear masks. So I don't.
It's still required at the federal level. I had to go to a FEMA office here recently for some work, and at the federal level, they still require all their offices to mask.
Yeah.
This is kind of talking about what you said, Danielle. My best friend has been in healthcare for 20 years, and she was a manager of multiple clinics, and she said when they did the vaccination clinics, she has never felt more appreciated or more like she was doing good than in that time. Like the people that were thanking her for giving them the vaccine. And like she said, she's never felt more appreciated in healthcare than in that moment. And like she loved it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the vaccination clinics that pop up are targeting and geared for people who don't have regular routine access to healthcare. Most of those vaccines are going to, well, all of them are going to be free vaccines to get, regardless of your ability to pay.
Right.
And that is helping keep those people from being admitted to the hospital in many cases. And so they're appreciative of the efforts, that are being taken to help inoculate them.
Yeah. Just a couple statements about, and first, Danielle, unfortunately with these conversations we have to have a lot of times about vaccination, it starts with anger on one side. So you have to be very patient. And be very patient with these conversations, and you cannot get to anger at the same point as them. Because you are looking at them like, you freaking jackass. Come on, dude. Did you pick up the science book? But you have to, so it's you have to be very patient, especially at the beginning. People were like in your face about these vaccines when you became public enemy number one. So that, Becky, to your other statement, I still have people in downtown Santa Cruz, because when we opened up our mass vaccination tent, at the end of the day, I would go from freaking place to place and ask them, like, please, I would like all your employees who want a vaccination. I will vaccinate them right now. I still walk. I was just downtown a couple of days ago with some friends, and this restaurant owner was like, did you guys know that this guy came into here and asked for all my employees to be vaccinated? So that does make me feel really good, because still 2 years later, they still remember me for freaking some reason. I offered them their employees vaccination. So that does make you feel really good. Another thing, Danielle, I don't know if you guys are doing this in Louisiana, but how we in California are starting to look at positivity rates in the counties, because we're still in tier systems. Are you guys still doing tiers, orange, red, green, like masking, all that kind of stuff? Well, our tier system is based on fecal matter, fecal matter. We test like these waste stations, and we see how much virus is being dumped into the fecal matter. And that's how you can tell how your population, how much of your population probably is carrying COVID at the time.
Crazy.
They're doing the same. They're doing the same thing here too.
And that's going to start being like something in the future where we're going to start looking at that. I think that's a pretty new thing. We're going to start looking at that. So that's pretty interesting. Came out of
Bobby's blown away right now.
I know, he's like,
I agree with it, because if you think about it, you're taking a more true whole sample of your population instead of those that just elect to willingly be tested. Because there's some people that don't even want to be tested for COVID too. And I tell you, the anchor that came around it, I have lost friends on social media because they got so uptight in their panties in a wad, excuse the expression, but got their panties in a wad because you didn't want to, just because they were stubborn. And
it was politicized too much.
It
You
was.
know what? And I've told these guys this before. My reasons to get the vaccine were completely selfish, because I'm a pretty healthy guy. But I wanted my life back. I wanted to be able to go to football games and shows. We went to a musical over the weekend. You couldn't have done that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So I wanted my life back, and I wanted my family to have their life back, and I wanted to see some normalcy. So my thing was like, you know what? If I can get this, and maybe I can prevent other people, whatever I have to do my part, but I wanted my life back. I hate wearing masks. I'll do it out of respect.
I'll do it every day. I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it out of respect when we have to. We don't have to wear them at work, but there are times where we have an influx of cases, and our boss will say, hey, everyone, we need you to mask up when you're inside the building. And that's fine. And I will, of course, do that.
I would never call anybody out for not masking, but at the same time, I get so mad, because what does it do to you?
Do you guys still freak out when someone
You
coughs?
can't breathe. They got respiratory problems. You can't breathe for that long. Like, did you know surgeons wear masks the whole surgery?
Right. Yeah.
Do you guys still freak out when people cough and sneeze?
Carbon monoxide.
No, not because I'm vaccinated.
I freak out. I ain't gonna lie. I freak out. I hit my cough. I'm like, whoa.
I don't freak out, but here's the thing. A lot of those transmissions could have been prevented if we would have harped on proper hygiene techniques beforehand, which we should have been doing all along. I don't freak out when I see somebody cough and sneeze, because that's a normal everyday process. But when they don't cover their sneezes or coughs, I'm like, where have you been the past 2.5 years? Have we not learned anything?
Read the room, like
You're
the whole
dabbing.
read it.
It's like you're getting death glares from everybody.
Well, have you noticed that hygiene has gone up since all of
Do
this.
you
I
think
mean,
that true? That's
oh, I
true?
think so. Working
don't
in my
know.
line of
I
work,
think
I
people
see
are
guys
so
washing
dirty
their
as
hands a
hell.
lot more than they used to.
I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
People
People
are
go out to
dirty.
eat, and I see people leave the bathroom without washing their hands.
Yeah, still.
Yes,
Well, I
it
pulled
doesn't
people the
matter.
carpet for that one. I'm like, oh, whoa, hey,
Oh, I'll
you're in
still
there.
pray people. I was like, ma'am, you forgot to wash your hands, and just saying as sweet as can be. I don't care
I
if they
tell
give
guys,
me. I don't.
I'll see guys come out of the bathroom like, hey, you were touching Mr. Grimace. You need to handle that.
Mhm.
What
Handle
do you
that,
just call it?
Mr.
Mr.
Grimace.
Grimace.
That's gross. They'll never say that again.
I want to get back to this, Brian. I want to get back to the fecal matter testing.
Yeah, Bobby's
So,
face.
well, I mean, because that's
Genius.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's great, but it's interesting because now, I mean, where does it stop though? Is it like, can they test that for DNA?
Yes.
Like you personally, or is it too?
No,
Can they
it's
check
not.
it
I'm
for-
sure that
It's too.
it's
What
too
about,
mingled.
Pile
Too
of
intermingled.
food.
Hated.
So you can't test it. I mean, so how are they able to test it for COVID, but not other things?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the
Isn't
science
that
behind it.
crazy?
I just
Well,
know
if you
that
think-
that
I wanna
is
learn
how we
more.
are getting it reported is through the county reports through like
So if you think about how the sewer system works, the sewer system has pump stations that take it to a holding container
Mhm.
to where it's mixed and spread, and they have different chemical elements that put through it. So even if you were thinking about the DNA thought pattern or thought process, at that point when it's at the holding station at the transfer center, it has become so
Right.
intermingled.
Just hated.
Yeah.
Trying to isolate DNA would not be a practical application, and it wouldn't had admissibility into a
Yeah.
legal proceeding.
Yeah.
However, with that, you still have a biological product, which
Mhm.
is the fecal matter. So if you think about the biological processes and the different testing it for flu, testing it for COVID and flu each have its own DNA sequencing. So you can isolate the different elements of those, I say toxins, but those viruses, if you will, and send those off for lab sampling by, in all intents and purposes. They take water samples, just that they were testing it for listeria. They're testing chlorine levels.
Yeah.
They do chlorine levels. They do the same thing just to
Yeah.
see the amount of the substance that's present in there. So they can do both qualitative and quantitative testing on the samples.
Yeah, I mean, you really think about it. Like, when I was over in the Virgin Islands years ago for hurricane relief,
Oh, I remember
And
that. That was bad.
they tested the dirt and water for E. coli and Zeke and all that stuff, right? And I remember we found E. coli in the dirt where we were staying, like our tents were. And I had a colonel say, "Well, don't eat the dirt and don't drink the dirt. You'll be
Oh,
fine."
jeez. Like, that's all it takes.
Don't
Not
drink the
good.
dirt. Well, that's okay. Sure.
Yeah,
I won't
don't
drink the dirt.
don't like mix it with coffee water or something, and or don't
Eat mud pies.
Don't
Yeah,
eat mud
why
pies.
would you do that?
That was his philosophy behind it. So
So
Yeah.
for Brian and Danielle, like, because we've kind of been talking about like huge crises, like with hurricanes and with COVID and those things, like, do you guys unfortunately feel like it takes these kind of mass destructionary type of things for a true plan to be formed? Or do
I
you
do.
think that we've always been ready for whatever we've had coming for us?
No, 100% I do. Because think about this, the whole Department of Homeland Security was not in existence prior to 9/11.
Yep.
And
Right.
it's a really crummy thing that happened, but it takes a disaster of significant impact to our society for us to uncover deficiencies in planning that we have nationwide and community-wide. And so a lot of times you don't know what's wrong or something that's wrong until it's broken. And we found what was broken and then now know how to fix it moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, Becky, I'll
Is
put
it
it
a
in
selfish
perspective for
thing?
you.
Is it a selfish thing where, like, until it affects us or our family member, we don't care?
I don't think it's a selfish thing. I think people are more apathetic about it
Right.
because they think, it's not my circus, my monkeys, so they don't have to deal with it. And so they don't have as much compassion towards those that are living it and going through it.
Yeah.
From personal experience.
No, yeah.
So, Becky, I'll put it in perspective for you. So, I started in law enforcement let's see, April 2000. And then, of course, September 11th, 2001. Prior to that, everyone used 10 codes. And every agency had a different style of 10 codes. So after September 11th and all the different language or the text or whatever you want to use, they all went to plain language. So now it's like, you still use simple things like 10-4 or whatever, but if you wouldn't be like, I'm on scene and use a code section or code for on scene, you would just say on scene, instant command, or whatever the case was. So a lot of things like September 11th changed a lot for the communication, because communication was a huge issue between the police departments and the fire department. And then when they got all those agencies there, that was a huge thing. And then fast forward, Katrina, they had a huge communication issue.
Yeah.
And it really, they learn something every time. I've been through probably 3 major hurricanes or disasters here in the county. And we were kind of lucky because we saw September 11th, the teachings of it. And from Katrina, we learned a lot. So when we had our issue, it was a little bit easier to deal with. But yes, every disaster that hits, we all learn something. And then we have to play the what if game.
Well, but also, like, don't you think, especially with Katrina, like, I feel like a lot of things should have already been in place. Like, do people think that, or is it just like, okay, we'll learn from our disaster? Or
I think you said this before, Danielle. Go ahead.
Here in Louisiana, prior to Katrina, it was just in either the year or the couple of years before, it was very soon before, they did an exercise, a tabletop exercise based on something they called Hurricane Pam. And the Hurricane Pam was based on, it was either Category 4 or Category 5 hitting the city of New Orleans. They found deficiencies in the levee system then. Nobody did anything to fix it. Whenever Katrina hit, because they found all the stuff that needed to be done, but they got lost in the legislative haggling over acquisition of funds to do these projects, and then so it went by the wayside, and we all know the results of that, that kind of lackadaisical attitude about it.
So in the end, it costs them more money. If we want to talk money, it cost them a lot more money in the end if they would have just fixed it in the beginning.
Yeah, it's been statistically proven for every $1 spent on a mitigation project, you can save $4 on the back end for response and recovery efforts.
Now, to help Bobby out here, because Bobby actually does, we've talked about it before, Bobby has done some military contracts and other types of contracts. And so you would know the perspective of, like, you're putting in a bid to a government agency for a product. Yeah. And so you understand that concept between those type of things. And then sometimes the unfortunate part is you might have a really good product, but you might cost too much for your company. And so we'll go with like a lowest bidder. And then, like, I know for the military, we've had things that go, oh, we were the lowest bidder, and you don't know how to operate the thing. The simple things of taking a microphone jack and attaching it to a radio is an act of, it's like trying to, a monkey doing the boom boom with a football. That's how bad it is. With trying to get this microphone attached to a radio. And it's because we went with the lowest bidder. We couldn't just make things simple. So, because sometimes some of this is kind of like gets lost in sauce, but I mean, putting on that perspective of if you having a military contract or those type of things, and trying to convince a government agency, hey, you should really go with my crap works. Yeah,
which happens all the time. I mean, government doesn't always go with the lowest bidder, but yeah, they're looking for cheap
efficiency
if they can find it.
Yeah.
Well,
They go with and because I've done a few things with my county that has taught me that. I'm like, hey, it's just an example. We would say, like, well, we need this, and Home Depot is really great, Well, no, we got to let everybody put their bid in.
Yeah.
It's a county policy that everyone gets to put a bid in.
Yeah.
Probably the same
Yeah, I
way
mean-
for hospitals.
With a
It is.
natural
It's the same.
disaster.
Not here. We have contractors that we have different people. Like I can't go. This is an example. I needed a headlamp for a new service line, urology. They needed headlamps. I couldn't just go to freaking REI and buy a headlamp. I had to go through a vendor where it costs 4 times as much
Oh, wow.
Right.
because that's just who we have a contract with.
And,
Yeah.
and it's
We
the same. It's the same in military. You know, when I do military and aerospace contracts, same. You have to be approved. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't
Right.
just walk in and be like, "Hey,
Mhm.
this is what I'm doing." But to convince the higher ups that you need this particular jack, if you don't want to have a monkey screw in a football kind of thing, I would think it's much more difficult for a natural disaster because you're trying to convince them that something's going to happen because it's inevitable. It will.
Right.
But it's like, do we spend the money now? Can we use the money better elsewhere? I mean, it's how it works in
But
our
it's not just
contracting
one
stuff.
entity. On
Right,
one of the
right.
things, like you have multiple contracts and multiple people that you're trying to deal with to try to get to the
Well, the
best
hope
rate.
is that they say things like this is a once every 1,000-year storm. They're hoping that it's
Right.
not going to hit while they're in their 1,000-year, and that's not going to happen once every 1,000 years. I mean, that's just what they call them. But
Right.
they're like, okay, well, is this going to happen in my lifetime? I might be out of office by the time this ever happens. I can spend my money elsewhere in my, so that's the kind of mindset people have. They're like, this isn't an immediate problem. That's
Mhm.
the people that are voting for me are needing to take care of. Hopefully this doesn't
Right.
happen for another 50 years and the
Right.
next person can deal with the budget of this.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
But-
but how many 1,000-year storms have we seen in like the past?
Well, they're becoming a lot more common, right? These 1,000-year
Right,
storms
right,
are becoming a lot more
right.
common.
Well, isn't there
Um,
like severe weather in the South right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually on well, I'm
I was
actually on
gonna say,
call
yeah.
right now because Louisiana, Mississippi, and
Yeah.
I think Alabama are
Mhm.
we've had I dealt with today no less than 5 tornado warnings in my
Oh.
district. Luckily, nothing's I say spawned
Thank
from them, but
God.
they were tornado warnings, but
Mhm.
luckily no damage to
Right.
anything. So I've been dealing with all that today, and I'm still on call to help out the other parts of the state if they get stuff. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew there
And
was.
it's December. It's crazy that you're
Never
talking about
ending.
tornadoes in December.
but tomorrow, 11:30 is the last day of hurricane season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You just
But
jinxed it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You just jinxed
probably
it.
so. Probably
Well,
so.
11:29. No, just kidding.
It's like saying the Q word on a shift.
it is.
Mhm.
Oh,
Can't
God,
do it.
yes.
Danielle, so it's looking at your what you've done throughout your career, you've done a lot of you've done work where you get to help an individual, you get to look them in the eye and see the outcome of what happens, and you also get to you don't get to look people in the eye, but you can kind of know, or you can go to bed at night sleeping knowing that many millions of people are being helped underneath of plans that you've made. Which one of those do you find more satisfying, do you think? Is it, or is there a little bit of satisfaction in each and it's a little different?
And honestly, in each of its own different ways, I can tell you that there's not a lot of people in the world that can say that they are truly blessed to be doing their dream job. I am one of those individuals that can. I love what I do. I love what I do. Of course, I wish the salary was a little bit more. So if any of my people here listening to this,
Who's the race?
throw your girl ball. No, but no, I really am, and I would do it for free. What I'm doing, I would do it for free. I really would, because I love it that much, because I know how impactful it is, and I know the good that's coming of it. Now, I also see too the personal gratification that I get when I did a lot of one-on-one. Back when I worked in law enforcement, I worked with domestic violence victims who wanted to learn how to defend themselves, how to be proactive in their own personal and situational awareness and defense. And I would see these females that would go from these abusive situations to, at the end of the day, they had a mannequin, just like you have Bob behind you. They were waylaying on that and knocking him over. And you could see them there. You could see the timidity fade away from them. And they got that self-confidence and they got that positive attitude and they got that, I'm not going to be a doormat anymore for this person to do. And I've seen so many success stories of women that have left different abusive situations that are now in happy relationships, that are not being somebody's punching bag, and I know it happens to men too. I totally recognize that. It's just, I particularly worked with women because it just in my experience, and TJ, you could probably attest to this, that women are usually more comfortable learning and working from women in those different circumstances. So that's predominantly what I worked with. And
you're not going to have a guy coming to you and saying, Danielle, can you teach me how to fight my wife, please?
Right.
Well, not going to come to a girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And back when I used to teach concealed carry in pistol classes, it was I was very humbled by the amount of most of the classmates that I had were men, and I'm still friends with every single person that I went through there, and they still a lot of men too. They reach out to me to ask questions, and you have to, and I'm very humbled and honored that, because in a lot of times you won't have men reach out to a woman to ask questions and things like that, and you have women that won't necessarily want to reach out to men to ask them things. And what's been interesting, and this is just something that's happened in the past 24 hours, y'all. Yesterday I went to my local Walmart here in Lafayette, and I had to get a couple of things. Normally I do the grocery pickup, but you have to have $35 minimum order for grocery pickup. I only need a couple of little quick things that I needed for a recipe. So I went in there, and I of course have situational awareness. I'm looking around and cognizant of my surroundings, and I've noticed throughout the store I had these two Caucasian gentlemen that were following. One was following within 10 feet of me, just kind of looked like he was looking at stuff whenever I kind of looked up and took notice of him. The other one was circling, walking past the aisle, looking towards his and I interaction, if there was an interaction, looking like he was looking on his phone. I stopped to look at a product that was on my shopping list and read the ingredients, because I'm an ingredient reader. And this guy starts saying, "Hi, how are you?" And I'm just like, and I'm cordial, and I'm just like, "I'm well, how are you?" And he was like, "So do you have any kids? Where are your kids?" And asking me, "Are you single?" And just personal questions that I wouldn't think that a stranger should be asking another stranger. And I told him, I was like, "Look, I'm uncomfortable answering these questions. I thank you for saying hi to me, but I'm going to wish you a good night, and I'm going to go about my shopping." And I did it, and I went about my shopping, grabbed the last couple of things that I need, headed to the checkout. Well, I get to the checkout, and I'm doing the self-checkout, because I don't know about y'all's Walmarts. All the Walmarts we have here now are all self-checkout. So I'm checking out, and I see the two guys standing by where the greeter area is at Walmart, and they're looking in my direction. And I'm just like, okay, so this is going to be something. And that's what I'm thinking. My little spidey senses are starting to tingle. And so I get my receipt, and I'm walking out. And as I walk out, I casually lift up the side of my shirt and put it over my handgun. And they can see my handgun is on my hip. And as I did not say a single word to them, did not look in their direction, as I did that, they went walking like pretty swift, stomping off in the other direction.
Good and for so you.
I don't know what their intentions were. They may have not had any ill intent. They may had ill intent. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny what they had planned. But I was not going to make myself be a victim yesterday. So I went and shared this same experience that I just shared with you all on my TikTok page. And I am not a big TikTok person as far as super popular with tons of viewers and whatnot. But in the past 24 hours, I have had over 89,000 views of my video that I posted yesterday. And I have had, and TJ could attest to this because he went through there and read some of them. I have had women asking me different questions about, so what's the process of getting trained and doing this stuff? I have had people ask me, what's the process of being a concealed carry holder? I've asked them, elaborate more on situational awareness. And of course, I've had a couple of trolls be naysayers on there that say that I'm making it up or whatnot. And I've politely replied that I said, I totally respect your opinion. You think I'm using my platform to promote firearms. If you'll watch my other videos, I hate politics. I am apolitical. I don't identify with any kind of political party. And so I if you read through the comments, there are other women that testified that stated on the video that they had the same circumstance happen in the same store yesterday as well, and gave a similar description of the same guy. So you can believe my story or not, or whatever. And
So,
then
I love that you're empowering women.
Yeah,
though,
that's
because
awesome.
That's what we have to do.
So
Stop
y'all
being
heard-
weak little
Yeah.
yes sir, no sir, I'll do whatever you need. We
Right.
need to freaking be bold and don't F with me. Because I
Well,
got
see, that's the thing. That's the thing too. People, not just women, but men too. They can make themselves targets. Because I can tell you, man or woman, somebody who's walking through the store, walking through the park, doing your errands, standing up with your body presence high, with your head held high, not looking in the phone and looking around. That's going to make you less of a target, because you're showing that confidence. You're showing that side of you that I might second guess messing with this person, because they could possibly beat my behind, and a lot of it is the way you carry and present yourself.
Yeah, a couple things of that. So this right here can be the biggest enemy, because you walk around the store or you walk around the sidewalk. I've seen young people do this all day long. They got their phone like this. They're watching TikTok, whatever they're doing. But there's another thing is there's two terms. There's hard target and soft target. So Danielle last night was a hard target. She was aware of her situation. She made it very clear what she was going to do if you decided to F around and find out on the scale. So there's a lot of factors with the hard targets, soft targets, and so many people become soft targets because they're not paying attention. They're not. I mean, even me. When I'm out, I'm constantly looking around. I'm constantly figuring out is like, how do I get away from stuff? We were driving the inner city over the weekend, and just how when I go up to red lights, I don't get behind the car right away, like real close. I'm always looking if someone decides they want to bum rush me, I can go my left or I can go my right and get out of a situation. Not a lot of people think that way.
Yeah, if you park the front of your car where you can see the front end of your car touch on the visualization of the back of the cars in front of you tires, you will have enough room to move left or right in the event that you're struck from behind.
Yep.
So Danielle,
these are things we take for granted.
Yeah, isn't it amazing though that because all this is very intuitive to us. But almost like when I found out last year that people don't have internal dialogues, this blew my mind. I thought everybody had an internal dialogue.
What?
Everybody does. Only like 30% of the population or 50%.
I wish mine would shut up sometimes.
I know. I can't shut mine down. It's
But
constantly talking at me.
But it's also very amazing to me when you have to explain situational awareness to people. Yes. Because we have this happen all the time, especially happens to our downtown clinic a lot. Because, downtown, there's a lot of homeless people and people just get scared about that. I'm like, guys, you have to be aware of your surroundings. And it's like when I'm having these conversations with people, I'm like, how in the hell have you guys lived this long without having situational awareness? I mean, you always got to know. And my wife's bad about this. I've had to teach her situational awareness. But at the same time, I'm like, how come this is not just instinctive to people to know where your surroundings are? I mean, we're animals to the core. Should be nervous about surroundings that we're not used to, but people are just.
I think a lot of it has to do with the going back to, you think about psychology, the whole nature versus nurture. If you don't have someone instilling you these principles and teaching you to have that situational awareness, I can tell you, my daughter is 6 years old, was going with me when I was teaching these concealed firearms classes. She knew how to break down a firearm to clean it at 6 years old. Not everybody may agree with that. To each your own opinion of that. But she did so in a controlled setting. She saw what a firearm could do and the damage it could do, that it took her curiosity away to where she did not want to meddle with a firearm or try to go in mama's gun cabinet. Not that she would get access to it, but she was aware of the situation that you could be put in when you had that. And the same thing when I taught self-defense classes, when I had the physical ability. I can't now because I'm having my hip rebuilt and just not physically able to do it anymore. But when I went, it was teaching self-defense and using implements like the Bob mannequin and the hand-to-hand combat, and actually physically trying to break away from someone who was threatening you or trying to grab on you. She went with me and she participated that, and that's something that as a mom of a single mom of a daughter, I wanted her to know that now that she's in middle school. She goes to the best school in the state is in one of the worst neighborhoods that there is, but that they have.
She's a badass. She's ready.
But she grew up with mama doing this, she grew up with me working for the fire service. She's been on ambulances and fire trucks and in police cars all her life. So she knows. And I can tell you though, back when I was working in law enforcement, when that was right at the beginning, when they started having a lot of the hostility towards law enforcement, she would cry and beg me not to go to work because she was so worried that something was happening to mama, just from somebody retaliating, against me based on the actions of someone else. And so luckily, you'd be stupid not to. And so I was blessed in hindsight looking at it. I shattered my hip in the end of 2017. 2018 is when it just really went downhill with the Michael something.
Michael Ferguson.
Yeah, the Ferguson thing. Yeah, thank you. That, and then you started having the Dallas 5 police officers that were shot, the 5 officers that were shot in Baton Rouge.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and just become targets. And so I got out of it right before all that happened, thank God now. But
I need that retirement check.
Yeah, you could
There were
not
so
pay
many
me
times I thought about leaving.
To be a
and
days.
that's hard. I mean, like TJ, you're still in law enforcement. My ex-husband and my son's father is in law enforcement. And that's the hardest thing. Like, you can't teach people to know that like cops are humans and have a family to come home to.
They don't want to hear reason. They don't want to hear reason. If you look at the Bureau of Justice statistics, again, here my nerdism's coming out, but if you look at the Bureau of Justice statistics, each year there's over 200 million, if I'm recalling the statistic correctly, over 200 million different calls for service for law enforcement. A call for service could be to report a break-in, to report a missing kid, to record a noise complaint. So it could be any gamut. And that also includes interactions where law enforcement initiates a traffic stop. So you have all these interactions that go by without anybody getting shot or no one being accused of anything. But you have people that like to sensationalize incidences where officers are involved in some type of thing where the suspect or whatnot is killed or injured. And it just sensationalizes that, and people just kind of lose their minds about it and not willing to listen to reason. However, in some cases, their officers are at fault, and I give them that all day long. But in most times, it was the interaction occurred because it was somebody, non-compliant.
That's the whole thing. It's like, I mean, regardless of what your beliefs are or what you feel like with law enforcement, it's about compliance. And, if you comply and just do what an officer tells you, I hope they're doing the right thing, but you're going to be coming out just fine.
Yeah. Well, just like TJ said earlier, there's bad seeds in everything. I mean, you guys have all heard about the nurse that killed all those babies in Italy by giving them insulin.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, like, you just don't know. A bad person's going to get in every profession, but it's now we have all this media and all the, but you got to remember, like, that is one case out of millions, like Danielle was saying. One case out of millions.
Have you seen the Netflix documentary about the killer nurse?
I haven't heard about this one.
Yeah. I don't know his name. Sorry. There's a whole Netflix documentary about.
But yeah, it's a shame that like a whole group of people gets,
it's called Capturing the Killer Nurse. It's about Charles Cullen, and he was killing patients while working in hospitals and nursing homes in the United States. Yeah.
Well, so you have.
There's bad seeds literally everywhere.
I will tell you this.
I don't know. It wasn't me, but I'm just saying. You just never.
I'm really good at talking to citizens. Like I'm a smooth operator. Someone can be in a very bad situation. They can be ticked off at the world, and I will go in there and I will calm down, baby. It's all good. And that's my philosophy, because I'm like, I do not want to agitate people. I try to be calm and collected with
match
people.
the energy, because then it escalates everything.
Yeah, I was talking to a coworker about that today. You know, even though you may need to interrogate someone and they may be guilty of sin, you know, you're going to get more out of them and more compliance with answering questions, but treating them with respect and as if they're a human being, not like the piece of crap that we may in our minds think that they are, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Myself and my coworkers today were talking about how we treat our citizens.
Yeah.
And we were like, we got to live here. And if you're walking around like you're John Wayne and you don't, but you're acting like John Wayne because you got the backup coming. There might be a time where you're at the Walmart,
right? By
you
yourself.
see that same cat, and you don't have that backup.
Yep.
Were you respectful? Were you like I always treated the sense that, look, you're in a bad situation right now, and you got to get through it. This is your journey, not mine. I'm doing my job. I'm going to try to help you as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But if you did the crime, you did the crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have not, in 23 years, let me knock on some wood here. I've never had any bad interactions.
That's awesome.
I didn't either. In the years that I worked in law enforcement, granted it was only 3.5, I never went hands-on with anyone. I never had anybody come at me cross. And it's because I just was calm and I treated people with respect.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Danielle, I know you need to get off here because you need to get to work, and I'm still at work and I would like to get home. But I just had an interaction like a couple weeks ago, and we can talk about this another time, but where I sat down and listened to this lady who was in law enforcement, and she got out because of an incident I remember from 10 years ago where this 6'8" dude beat the living hell out of her because he planned something in a hospital to go into an MRI machine where she couldn't take her gun, her handcuffs. He planned all this shit. And so like to sit down and hear her tell me this story, it was just a couple weeks ago. She's a bartender now. And I was like, this is freaking amazing, man, to hear why she got out of law enforcement. But it was like around this really bad incident. And like, I'll tell you, it's like a 20-minute story. It's very amazing. And how this lady's still alive is amazing to me. But just the squirrely situations you can get into. But Danielle, thank you very much for your time today. I know that
please come back.
Yes, I would love. I love talking to y'all. Y'all are extended family now.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry I have to break early. It's just with the stuff. It's work related. I got to return a call to a coworker. But I'm gonna break. Thank you. I hope y'all have in case I don't see you before the end of the year. God bless each and every one of you and your families, and I pray that you have a wonderful and joyful Christmas with everyone. Okay.
You as well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Take care. Bye.
All right, look, I tell you what, that was a good show, guys.
Are you live?
Yeah.
Stop recording.
No, we're still going.
We're still going. So great time. Great. I'd like to have her back.
Absolutely.
We really didn't. When we get into all these conversations, we don't really we ask a couple questions, but we go sidetracked because she's such a great conversationalist, that
she is.
We can, it's not just like a very linear, like I'm only going to answer your question.
Right.
Yeah. And she's not just about her job. She like what she does now. She's had such a vast career of things that are amazing. Like we need her on like 20 more shows.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Bobby
So
learned something new today.
Before we get off here,
Maybe.
Brian, when you're telling that story about the young lady, you should ask her to come on the show.
You think
I'll see. I'll go back down to this place and see. She's like, it's like this local brewery that's down the street from my house. I just go down there every once in a while, but I'd never seen her before. And she was talking to these other two guys, but I kind of was like catching, and I was like, wait a second, are you talking about this incident that happened? Like, and I remember it very well because there's only 2 hospitals in this county. And I remember the day that this happened. This guy basically planned in his mind all these fake symptoms that he knew was going to get an MRI. And so the police officer was like, this lady's like 5'2". Right. This guy was 6'8". They set this girl up so horribly. Like they should have never had her transporting this person to a facility where they know they're going to have to take off all their metal. I mean, this guy was very smart on what he did, what he was doing. But yeah, put her in a very bad spot. And like, she's telling me the story and I'm like, I mean, she's talking about times where she's trying to get the gun away from him. They're fighting in a ditch. I mean, it got from the hospital to a ditch outside to like where she's fighting him with everything she has to keep the gun from pointing at her. And you're just listening to this lady's story and you're like, man, this is like what your life flashing before your eyes is about. Like what this lady's telling me right now, her life was flat. Every ounce of freaking adrenaline was keeping that gun away from her face, man. Because there's no reason why a 5'2" woman should have been able to keep this 6'8" dude. And he was like, and he would just start beating her ass. So you're just like imagining this 5'2" woman just getting pounded by this big dude, trying to get her to, you know, it was just an amazing story. And I'm like, just, oh my God, I can't believe that you're still alive and able to tell this.
So was it about her? Was it to get her or just take revenge out on?
It was just to get him. He was trying to escape.
He was trying to escape.
Just stopping him.
He was in custody.
He was in custody and he wanted to escape.
He needed to have like an opening to escape. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it had nothing to do with her. She just happened to be the victim of the person that happened to be transporting this dude that day.
And unfortunately, thank God she did what she did. But I mean, you wonder, would he have done it if he had a 6'8" guard or officer on him?
It would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot different of a outcome, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because, this was, and to hear this lady chasing this guy, I mean, she would chase him. I mean, because they got
she wasn't giving up.
She wasn't giving up, man. So she was going to get this dude. But it was just amazing to me. I was like, holy shit, man.
But we were talking about, you know, situational awareness. They are starting to teach that kind of thing. And well, for one, I think we're going to get there anyway. These kids are seeing what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, everywhere you go. You know, but I may have mentioned this already, but in driver's training, they're teaching, you know, why, you know, to not like at a stop sign, not pull up right next to the car in front of you, you know, give yourself space to move. Probably because we see videos coming out of San Fran of people getting carjacked because they can't move. They're stuck, you know, crazy. But I think we're going to get back to the point where
I hope so.
Well, I think, you know, we kind of grew up in pretty easy times. I mean, you know, I just saw you know, I'm a big Reddit nerd, so I read a lot of that, but it was real interesting to see in our lifetime. So born in 79, over 50% of our life has been in war. We've been in war. Our kids, 100% of their life has been at war, or we have been at war. And of course, that's talking about wars, but it got me thinking about really the wars, not just a war, but wars here. You know, you see the mass shootings since Columbine kind of.
Columbine, like we based everything off of Columbine, but oh my God, so much worse has happened. Like it's not getting better; it's just getting worse.
It's for age wise for our kids. So I had the oldest, and Natty was about a year old when that first shooting happened.
99.
And Seth is 20, 21.
21.
Seth
21.
wasn't born yet.
So for, you know, like I think Natty's class or maybe the class afterwards was not alive for September 11th. That's how long we've been in battle in this country. So
I remember where Seth was. I remember Becky and I were living together in that house in Bellbrook. I remember that right around the corner from Darlene. We're trying to build that house, like make it nice so we can all live in it.
That lasted 0.2 seconds.
Yeah, that place was a shithole. But I remember like hearing about that. I remember very distinctly carrying Seth outside in the middle of Bellbrook and like just looking up in the sky going, what the fuck is going on today?
Right.
This is like going to change our lives.
Brian told me about it and I thought he was lying because Brian liked to mess with me a lot. And he told me a lot about it. Like there was a fire at the hospital. I didn't believe him. There was September 11th. I didn't believe him. Like, yeah. And I was still in the military when September 11th happened. And I was freaking the hell out. Like, all right, here we go. This is my demise.
We probably heard the air raid going on at Wright Pat because they had that going on. There was all kinds of talk about biological warfare. It wasn't just
they were going to hit Wright Pat. Yeah, we were so scared because it was one of the number one bases. And Wright Pat was going down, and we're all within a radius.
We're all this from it, Bobby.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're going to get hit. So do you run towards it or run away? I think you run towards it.
I think
You just want to face it, huh?
Just
You're
get
right.
it.
I don't want to
You're
have to
just
like
it.
do all the shit that people in The Walking Dead have to do to stay alive. Just take me
Oh
down.
yeah,
I don't
Just
wanna
ask the kids that play Call of Duty; they'll tell you.
yeah.
Yeah. You just run towards it.
Yeah, dude, that's not a world I want to live in. So
I don't
I'd
either.
rather just die from the radiation sickness immediately.
Mhm.
That's sad
Amen to
that we
that.
have to do like that, but yeah, legit. All right, guys, I can't last much longer.
No,
Yeah.
let's end this show on a good note.
Yes.
We
I'm
haven't
depressed
been doing last things. I'm not going to
No.
put you on the hook for it.
No.
So
Are we doing a show next week, you guys? Next
what's
Tuesday?
that?
We doing a
I don't
show
have a
Tuesday?
guest yet, so if you guys can get one, that's great.
Well, let me know because I leave Thursday for Hawaii, and if we're doing one, I need to bring my computer.
Okay.
Why are we not going with you?
Yeah.
Come. Yeah.
Whatever. It's too late now.
Why?
Too late now.
It'll be too much.
So
Don't.
if-
I'll show up on your doorstep. Be right.
do it, Becky. Come on, I'll give you the address.
So,
All right.
So I just need to know if I need it because I won't take my computer if we're not going to do
Okay.
a show. I'm not going to lug it around.
all right.
A show in Hawaii, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
bring your computer
that
so
would
we
be
can see
amazing.
Hawaii.
With
I'll
the
bring it.
ocean in the back.
I'll bring it just in case. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, just bring it so we can see outside your hotel.
Unless it costs you like $50 extra. Okay.
No.
Because that shit's real. But who
That
knows?
is real.
That's real.
Real quick though, before we go, this is very interesting. Tara's Christmas present to Seth this year was very
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay.
$600. Okay, you guys, $600. This cost her.
Okay.
Starts in May of 2023, but Seth can fly as many times. Yeah, we can fly as many times in a year as he wants through Frontier Airlines. But he has to buy the ticket the day before the flight.
What?
But for someone like him, that's perfect because
Yeah.
he wants to go see his girlfriend in Portland. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
off the next couple of days. I'm going to basically be on standby every day, and get a flight. I told him to really take advantage of this.
So
Basically,
so you pay
what
pay
you want.
$600 and then you have to still buy your ticket.
Nope. Don't buy a
No.
ticket. You just have to.
book it the day before.
You just have to book it the day before your flight. That's the only
Do we fly
stipulation.
Frontier around here though?
I don't know. I don't know. Frontier is
I
a
don't
very
know.
small
Yeah.
airline right now, but I
Yeah.
told Seth
Yeah.
to take advantage of that because that would be an awesome little thing to do. Like just fly to a city that they fly to, stay there for a couple days, fly
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
It'll take you 20 minutes to get to Portland. And oh my God, that's amazing.
Yes, we'll see what that does, but that was a pretty cool present idea from
That is
Tara
a cool
to Seth.
present.
That's a great present idea.
That is.
You know what? People that watch this video,
Mhm.
comment and tell us what Seth should do.
Yeah,
Where should
tell
he
for my,
go? Where
where
should
should I
Seth
send my
go?
22-year-old son? Where should I send him to?
Let's give him some
Where in the
ideas of
world
where
is
to go.
Stevens? Yeah. Let's
I
see.
can't tell if Frontier's in Dayton or not.
I don't know that it
It
is. I've never
it
I think
doesn't
it
look
does
like
fly
it.
to somewhere in Ohio because that was one of the whole points of her getting it was to get him
Cincinnati,
flights.
maybe?
Maybe Cincinnati.
Maybe Columbus. I don't remember. Maybe Columbus, because we always do Southwest, and that's always out of Columbus. Dayton doesn't have it. But I don't remember Frontier.
It's,
Dude,
it's,
six- that's an absolute steal of a deal.
That is. If you can take
for a
advantage of
whole
that,
year?
it's going to be awesome. And imagine being 22, not really having any responsibilities, and just going, okay, I just need to buy this. For us, it would be a nightmare. It would
Yeah.
be such a waste of money for an adult because we can't just drop what
You
we're
could
doing.
never
and go
just
for it.
go.
But for a kid who has no responsibilities except for
Yeah.
school and his work, where he can get off whenever he wants.
Oh,
Oh
that's
my gosh, man, take advantage of this as much
Yeah,
as possible.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So leave a comment. Where should this boy go on,
Yep.
on the
Yeah.
city? What city to go
He's going
to?
to be in Vegas every other weekend with
I
That
will.
kid does not do Vegas, Becky. We did it for his 21st birthday.
Okay.
That kid is
All
not a
right.
Vegas
You
kid,
did. Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
which is good for me.
Okay.
That's fine, but he is
Yeah.
not a Vegas
Mhm.
kid.
Nice.
that's true.
All right, guys,
All right.
we're gonna end the show, but
All right.
hey, look, I had fun. Bring your
Awesome.
computer because we want to see Hawaii,
Okay.
Yeah.
and we'll have a good time.
Yes. I love you
Even
guys.
if we don't have a guest, we'll just BS ourselves. We'll BS.
There you go.
Come up with something.
Yeah.
All right, guys, have a great
All right.
night. Great
All right.
show.
All right. See
All
you
right, let's-
guys.
Bye.